Hi, good everyone. Welcome to the May 2022 edition of the West Virginia Entrepreneurship Ecosystem Monthly Zoom. I am Bill Woodrum, your co-chair of this event, along with Tara St. Clair, the other co-chair of the event. I'd like to thank you all for coming out on a day that a lot of people in the public space aren't here, but we appreciate so many of you all showing up. We've got a great conversation today, so I think you're going to really enjoy coming into this. Um, we have Amber Ravenscroft from the EdVenture Group today. She's the manager of innovation, and I love that title. It's always been one of my favorite titles in the ecosystem. But Amber has a specific focus on entrepreneurship and workforce. She is familiar to everybody in the system, so I'm not going to do the whole bio. But she emailed me last week and was like, "Have you seen this opportunity from NSF?" And I said, "No, I have not, but I think that the ecosystem needs to look at this and talk about this because we're well poised for it." So Amber, with no further ado, if you'll take yourself off of mute and let's explore this. I think this could be a great ecosystem builder project for us. You know, we've looked for these opportunities to work together, and I think this provides a pretty great one.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So I'll start by saying I am not the expert on this solicitation. It literally just came to me in an email and I sent it to Bill. I said this should be something we should bring up at the ecosystem call. And I put some summary slides together. So I definitely don't think I could be suited to answer any Q&As around the actual solicitation, but wanted to just give a brief overview of it. There's a couple questions using Mentimeter that I've integrated here just for us to be brainstorming around as an ecosystem. And then there are some key dates that we'll want to keep an eye on. But this is a National Science Foundation opportunity around regional innovation engines. And what it does is it creates an engine, or an NSF engine as they call them, that has three core functions: use-inspired R&D, translation of innovation results to society, and workforce development to grow and sustain regional innovation. So immediately I thought of this group and the work that we're doing across the state as it relates to entrepreneurship, but also the different industry kind of spurs of entrepreneurship that we've been working on as well. So I want to make sure, there are 3 program goals and they have different functions underneath them. The first is boosting innovation capacity. So increasing the level of commercial investment in R&D activities, developing global leaders and use research and topics of national importance, and embedding a culture of innovation and inclusion across a group of partners, which a lot of these, as I was sending this to Bill, we were just briefly talking about it. We were like, wow, this is a lot of the stuff that we're already doing. So we have a really strong infrastructure in West Virginia specifically that I think many states don't, to make us very competitive for this opportunity. So the first program goal is boosting innovation capacity. The next one is creating sustainable innovation ecosystems. So again, we already got kind of the beginning foundations of that in place. So forming partnership networks across industry. I always hate when I have a typo. Industry, academia, government, nonprofits to foster scientific innovation, transitioning technological and educational innovations to address national and societal challenges, and implementing pathways for sustained growth. So this is all about the partnership, the network development, kind of creating that infrastructure for innovation. And then the final goal is demonstrating inclusive economic growth. So I know inclusivity is something we're also very focused on with this ecosystem, engaging all those interested in, because it's National Science Foundation, science and engineering research and innovation, delivering economic and societal impacts informed by regional stakeholder needs, training diverse stakeholders on regional workforce needs. And under that one, they actually specifically cite entrepreneurs as people that should be trained on regional workforce needs. And then create thriving companies focused on emerging tech. So it's kind of looking at this space of science, engineering, R&D, transitioning that into an inclusive ecosystem, transitioning that into market development. So I wanted to pause here, and if you all haven't used Mentimeter, I just thought we could throw out just needs and opportunities that we think that are aligned. So if you haven't used Mentimeter, all you have to do is go to the information there at the top. So it should say, I'll copy a link and put it in the chat too. It should be menti.com, and then you just type in that code. And what I thought would be cool is if we were in like an in-person environment, we might put a different idea on each post-it note and slap them up on a wall. So with this one, you shouldn't have any limits on your ability to type things in, but I'd love to just dump ideas in here as we're thinking about the work that this ecosystem currently does. What are West Virginia specific needs and or opportunities that could be addressed through an innovation engine? If you all have trouble with the code, let me know.
And Amber, I know we have some folks that are on their phones that probably can't get on. So feel free to jump in and talk out loud too.
Yeah. And it does also work on a cell phone. So if you are, I mean, you might have to go in between Zoom and, but if you are on a phone, you can go into a smartphone browser and enter that in. Yeah, see, I was thinking we have so much momentum around, Bill and I had talked about that too, agri-tech, sustainable energy. There's a lot of new industry coming in that we're working on growing. We could do a lot of work around that space. I'll give it some more time. I'd love for everyone to just put a few thoughts in there so we can have kind of a collection of starting point when we look at this moving forward. These are interesting. Bill, Tara, I'd also love for you guys to weigh in if any of these are like striking you as something that you all are knowledgeable about too. I think a lot of these are really cool.
I love the idea of the workforce development around technology. I think that's something we've seen the state invest in, and it's something that needs more investment. And I mean that in a very broad sense. K through 16, not forgetting, community colleges in there. I think continuing to build on what is going on right now with the CTE programs in West Virginia, with entrepreneurship, and then the community colleges who have placed a focus, and then several of the universities have placed a focus. I think there's an awesome opportunity to align all that instead of making them dots on a map. Really aligning some of the thinking and making it very much, build upon one another.
Yeah, I love this. So if you all, if you have any other additional thoughts, please feel free to drop them in the chat. This is a great starting point for us to think of, just based on shooting from the hip, kind of what our immediate thoughts are. This is a great starting place. We have some industries identified, focus areas identified. Those are all things that we would need if we decide to move forward. So thank you for your feedback. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so I do want to just quickly highlight a couple of the logistics around this RFP. So they define regions of interest very broadly. They mention metropolitan areas, including its adjacent rural regions, to an area spanning parts of several states. So I think we could articulate the region that we want to work with. I also want to throw this out to you all around, is there interest in extending beyond the West Virginia borders and having outside state partners? That's something that we could think about. But I think the state of West Virginia counting as a region would definitely qualify based on that broad definition. So it's just something I want to keep in your radar. I know a lot of people work across the state lines anyway. We have very strong relationships with, for instance, Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia. Kind of all of our bordering states work very well and have similar cultures and economies to us. So I just want to throw that out there, that that's also a possibility based on their broad definition. And then they also highlight an innovation ecosystem life cycle. So they would expect the engine to go through this life cycle over the duration of their funding. And I'll talk about the funding in a little bit later, but there are two different streams of funding. But what it's designed to do is start with development, so initial scope and strategic plans of the engine, then get to nascent, which is organization and partnership structures, and then the activities ramp up. So really, I think I mentioned previously, we're pretty well poised to already be at the nascent stage. And then there's emergent. So we're kind of focusing, we're building our capabilities, we're scaling them, and we're starting to attract external funding from the NSF engines beyond that. Growth, become a national leader, increasing levels of economic activity and biz creation, and you have support across all levels of government, from local, state to federal. And then the final stage is this mature stage where you're well established and you can sustain beyond NSF's funding. The life cycle is important because it is tied to how they're kind of outlining their funding. So they have two different NSF award types. Right now, the open solicitation will be for type 1, which is focused on establishing groundwork for the innovation ecosystem, getting through the development stage, and preparing for a nascent phase. So that is $1 million up to 2 years to just purely get this type of infrastructure nailed down. And then the type 2 is where, after you would receive type 1, or you feel confident getting past the development stage, you would apply for type 2, where you're looking at phases 2 and 4 of the life cycle, from nascent to growth. And then you would need to have firm partners, stakeholders in space, show demonstration of growth of the ecosystem. And during a type 2 phase, you can have up to 160 million for up to 10 years to support the engine. So huge opportunity. I think, Bill, you said generationally changing amount of money there.
We think about the huge news that has been around the BBB investments, and this is a magnitude or so beyond that. And I think, again, Amber, I haven't had as much chance to dig in as you have. I've read over a little bit. We would be going right now for the type 1, like that's where you start, right?
Yeah, I think type 2, the solicitations aren't even open. They're anticipating they're taking concept papers for type 2 right now, but the funding opportunity, they're not estimating that to be released until 23. Type 1 does have an open funding opportunity, and I think we'd have a strong groundwork already in place for type 1 to be competitive.
The one thing I love that already on this call, we've got, of course, Ariane and Mary, who are working with SBIR, STTR programs. We have a lot of partners who are already engaged, and we have the system built up underneath it. I mean, I think it's intriguing from my end, I guess. And when you see that, not a typo, $160 million over 10 years to build out this system. I mean, again, I just let those numbers sink in, folks, for doing a lot of what we're doing and for a lot of what we have in place. We always said we would build this without going after the big grant. And then when we had the right system in place, we would go look for it. But it seems like the right system's in place, and this is, generationally changing, altering money.
And the good thing is that type 1 is up to 2 years. So if we feel that we're already well ahead, we wouldn't have to go for a 2-year runway on that. We could say, we're going to do it for $1 million for this amount of time, and then go for type 2 next year to keep that going a lot faster. So those are up to 2 years and up to 10 years. But we already, like you said, Bill, have some of the groundwork really strongly squared away. So this is kind of the look at how they're planning on funding it and the priorities that they're looking to fund. There are some key deadlines and opportunities I'd love to just share with you all as we're thinking about this. And want to reiterate again that I'm definitely not the expert on NSF. Like, this would be a collaborative grant proposal on behalf of all of West Virginia's partners. We would need to talk about what lead agency makes the most sense, but wanted to get this out in front of you while we have some runway. It was launched last week, so we're getting to it pretty early. But June 30th, the concept outlines are due. August 31st, a letter of intent is due, and then the final proposals for type 1 are due on September 29th. And then leading up to that, there are a couple different opportunities. May 17th will be their introductory webinar that goes over just the logistics, what they're planning on funding, kind of an overview of the opportunity. And then they're doing a series of road shows. June 15th is the one that includes West Virginia's as a part of their region to focus on regional priorities. So those two are available, and would love to see many of our ecosystem partners represented on those calls just to get feedback and participation. I'll drop the Eventbrite link as soon as I stop sharing my screen on here. But wanted to share this because I think Bill and Tara were just like, yeah, we should talk about this as an ecosystem, and just look forward to kind of seeing what next steps we can have. We did think a good next step, because this is kind of a 1 hour meeting that is designed for updates and collaborative topics, and then we could take a more structured approach. I think we should convene a working group. So the stakeholders that would be interested in being kind of the boots on the ground for the proposal development, we will issue a call for participation via email after the 17th informational webinar. So we just have a little bit more information, but would love to get as many folks that are interested in convening on that working group going after that May 17th deadline. And I wanted to just one last interactive question, kind of throw it out to the group. What stakeholders need to be included? Specific partners, even if they're representing your own partnership, but definitely if you want to be included, please let us know. And are there underrepresented groups we need to make sure are brought to the table for this conversation as well? So again, it's menti.com and then the code there at the top, just to drop your thoughts on stakeholders. And if there are questions, I'm happy to help answer any questions. But again, I am not a solicitation expert on this. So. Who from WVU put W? Yes, and they can be your own organization or organizations that you know are doing good work in the state, or general stakeholder groups that might not be at the table that we should include.
So Amber, is this you volunteering to kind of rally everyone around this, or?
I'm happy to volunteer to rally the cats. Yes, herd the cats.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know we have Ariane on here, and I know she was on her phone, but Ariane, did you have any initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks, Tara. And Amber, thanks for putting this together. We have been kind of tracking this opportunity and have started having some preliminary conversations, mostly just to, kind of gauge, like, is this a West Virginia effort? Do we, like you pointed out, do we kind of expand to some of those other regions? Do we go north? Do we go south? What do we do? I think there's some interest already from some other groups in potentially bringing West Virginia onto a proposal. There are some groups that I think are interested in going straight to phase 2, which I think is great and ambitious, not something I think we would want to do or really are capable of doing. So I think the approach of kind of going potentially after a phase 1. I will say, just like when I was thinking about this and thinking about kind of the short turnaround times with that first letter of intent that's due at the end of June, not by any means that I think we have to stay with this, but I think there is a lot of momentum in the state that went towards the work for the Build Back Better grants. And so I wonder just categorically if, one or both of those kind of clusters that were identified in those groups are potentially a good starting point for some of these activities. Again, not that I'm by any means married to that idea. I just know it's kind of like there's a foundation there with a lot of work that's already put in or that's been put in there. I think the other thing that's really interesting about this solicitation, and just to point out, is the $1 million, obviously there's not as much room for it. The larger grant though, I think they're being strategically unspecific with how you can spend the money. Now, one thing that they did call out pretty specifically is that for-profit partners are allowed to come in. They can't be the lead, but they encourage participation from those groups. So I think if we think about, how do we kind of leverage our assets and continue to grow them? Do we start looking for groups like Techstars or some group like that that has a broad reach with mentors and founder advice and that sort of thing? Do we look to bring a group like that in to provide some extra bandwidth? And then there's the opportunity as well for, as this grows, there, like I said, being kind of, I think, intentionally ambiguous, that some of that money could actually be used for kind of like venture or seed investment into companies. So just something I think that's interesting we should keep in mind as well, because I think that'll kind of impact where they end up landing. But the phase one, so my understanding is they're going to make 50 of these phase one awards, which I think is pretty good. I mean, that's one per state, not to say it'll shake out like that. But I mean, I definitely think this is an opportunity that we shouldn't let go.
Yeah, and I think the spot on, the BBB proposal teams already have a lot of this groundwork too, and we could just pull them off, like pull both. We have two for the state, right? That we could pull them together, and that could be a collaborative thing, for sure.
And so those topic areas, one was focused more on like the cybersecurity and supporting kind of the DoD cluster. And then the other one was focused more on kind of sustainable mine land, sustainable energy technology, and community resiliency. So I think the only thing we need to keep in mind, whichever cluster area, because it sounds like NSF wants to kind of identify a focus area, like a theme, is that it needs to be kind of in line with NSF's. Oh, sorry, my Siri's chiming in there. It needs to be in line with like NSF funding priorities. So really focusing on like deep tech more than like community businesses, I think would be important as well.
Yeah. It reads very science engineering. It's an NSF grant at its core.
Yeah, but I mean, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong. I've never much delved into NSF, but this is the most generic NSF grant ever. Like, NSF is usually very targeted, deep tech, very, very specific. I don't think I've ever seen them put out what amounts to a capacity building community development, economic development grant like this. Not in my time, and I don't browse them as much as other sites, but this seems almost revolutionary for them and very, very different.
Yeah, you're right, Bill. It definitely is a divergence from their typical funding announcements, to say it like that. I will say though, I think some of the precedents for this, in kind of just talking with some people at NSF that were part of this, is NIH maybe 5-6 years ago put out something. It was actually an STTR grant. It was called the NIH Idea Hub STTR. What that did was to create kind of innovation hubs in idea states, which are underfunded states by NIH standards. And so we participate on one of those. We're co-PIs with Kentucky on one of those idea hubs. And I think NSF saw that there was a lot of successful outcomes for those grants, and we're kind of wanting to do something similar, but they're not limiting it this time to underfunded states, which I think is interesting.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts from the group? But this is great. I think this is a great starting point. I'd encourage again everyone to attend the May 17th, and then Tara, Bill, I can work with you all on how we want to approach it from an ecosystem. And would love to just get everyone involved in the conversation that would like to be involved. It will definitely be a state group effort to put something like this in.
Yeah, I guess I'd just invite anybody else that has kind of thoughts off the top of their head right now. You can take yourself off mute and sign in. I think, again, though, when you see where we're at with the 2 BBBs, when you see where we're at with now 3 years of ecosystem development, the aligning of things we've seen over the last couple of years between the universities and government, I think there's a heck of an opportunity here, folks.
I'd also say, Bill, that our recent work with national entrepreneurship, we've really demonstrated that West Virginia is far ahead in terms of statewide ecosystems in support of entrepreneurship. And this is a layer of that proposal. So I know a lot of federal agencies, even outside of NSF, have West Virginia on their radar in terms of best practices in ecosystem development.
Well, Amber, thank you for taking this on. We know that.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem.
Not like you're doing anything else. So
I will say that if it's due on September 29th and I go into labor before then, I might have to hand it off to somebody else right before, but we'll try to get it in before I go into labor.
That is very considerate of you, man.
Thank you. Priorities, right?
Okay. Nobody else has anything else there. Then we quickly wanted to segue to Tara and a review of bridging, which occurred last month. Sorry, we probably should have done this the next week, but Tara and I were just out of it. So
we were tired.
We needed a little recoup time, a little time to not think about bridging innovation. But her team at WVU did put together a really nice thing that I thought will lead us into the conversation and maybe spur some of the group memories. So Tara.
All right. So yes, very excited about bridging innovation. I think Bill is going to share some of our statistics of what we saw throughout the week.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, we did 11 events over 4 days, which was aggressive to say the least, but worked out really, really well. We had documented more than 700 attendees. I think by the time you include in some of the receptions, it didn't really feed into that, and some of the outside activities that went on, we were close to 1,000 participants for the week, which is really just amazing. One of the major numbers I want to highlight is that, it was not just an academic process or not just a bureaucratic process. We saw like $123,000 in funding go out to small businesses that week. Innovation tech, we saw some amazing young entrepreneurs and community entrepreneurs come through the business plan contest at all levels, high school, college, community. There was actual pitches. Thank you again to Country Roads and the team down at the Hive for coordinating one of their investor meetings the Tuesday evening of Bridging Innovation. So, I think the $123,000 is what we can document from our end. But I think it actually turned out, it's probably going to be more down the line. And thank you. I know Michelle's on here. JIT stepped up that evening, and Sarah Miller stepped up that evening from Bandit Ventures and invested on the spot on some companies. And I thought it was just amazing. The one thing that didn't quite happen was our Friday event got canceled. So we're looking at what we can do next year. And I guess that's some of what we wanted to get feedback from you all now on. It is kind of what you thought went well, what you thought could be improved in future years, and where you think we should go, maybe physically, metaphysically, and other ways in the next coming years. I definitely have some very strong thoughts, but before I give those, I'd like to open it up and hear some from the group here. You got to take yourself off mute.
Well, I'll get us started. I want to commend Bill and Tara. I mean, you guys did an awesome job planning and organizing that thing. And I know you had last minute changes and shifting going on. And like if you hadn't told me that, I would never know. So first of all, I just want to say you guys did a really great job. Second of all, I vote for Northern Panhandle.
Terry has that Wheeling feeling. We have talked about moving it around. You know, just if anybody, that's where that kind of came from. So if you have strong suggestions, just not based on your own personal location, Carrie White, we would love to hear those as well. And I heard somebody start to chime in there.
Yeah, this is Ann Jones. I also would like to see it up in the Northern Panhandle, and I would love to see, you know, if we brought it in to maybe do some more workshopping, you know, the day before. I think those, you know, working with some of the pictures the day before was so valuable for everyone. And who knows, maybe bring in some more arts related as well. I know somebody who's very intelligent, but I can't remember what their name is, was referring to it almost like South by Southwest Virginia. I can't remember who said that, but it was somebody who's super intelligent.
That had to be Tara St. Clair. I think that's a great idea, and I would love to see more arts and tech involved, more startups. And you know, again, not that I'm beating the Wheeling drum, but Wheeling obviously has a pretty fantastic tech culture up there, with all the things that are going on with Brian Joseph and some of the spin outs of his companies. You know, I think, yes, arts are a great part of it. And Wheeling also has a great downtown story, a story of recovery and Main Street businesses there. I think those are the kind of aspects, whether it's Wheeling or not, that we need to make sure we're inclusive of. I want there to be that Main Street aspect of this as well, because those jobs or those businesses drive jobs in the economy in West Virginia for sure.
And we want to be clear in saying that we want to take it all over the entire state of West Virginia.
Yeah.
So obviously we kicked it off at the capital city. So we're just starting to look for that next location, but that is not where we will be forever. And we really want this to be a pull. We don't want to just pick somewhere. We want somewhere that people are excited about and are willing to help us. Bill and I are still tired, so we can get some committees going, and having folks helping us, especially boots on the ground, would really be incredible.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Hey, Bill and Tara, this is Mike, just to throw out a concept. If you want to include the arts, you may want to start by just connecting with Renee Marcosi at the Tamarack Foundation. So that would be, I think, a good start.
Thanks, Mike. Other thoughts?
This is Ariane. I love the idea of kind of building in some more like thematic groups for pitch competitions. Like if we have one that, you know, energy or sustainability or finance, whatever it is, and then broadening. I guess you'd have to be a little careful there, but like broadening out to like who could participate in those as well. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, one group that approached us afterwards that sees a role for themselves that made me really happy was the West Virginia Manufacturing Association and Rebecca McPhail. Obviously, manufacturing is a big industry in West Virginia, is a big employer. And, you know, from my time at RCBI, it is also, you know, there are so many small manufacturers across the state that feed into that supply chain, that it's super important for small business as well. Joe Howard just dropped into chat, curated matchmaking, experiential workshops, and captivating keynote speakers. I love the curated matchmaking concept. We talked about like speed dating for the supply chain, which some kind of concept around that I think would be really cool. And Joe is actually right up and down everything we talked about that we want to build in and continue. So thank you for those comments, Joe. And of course, as we go, we'll also be looking for people who have great keynote speaker ideas. I'm trying to brag for a second. I don't think we could have put together a much better list of speakers this year. The panels were fantastic. The keynote was fantastic. Our lunch speaker was fantastic. We had, you know, the president of the two major universities. We had the governor. We had secretaries of state. We had, you know, that was, Tara and I did kind of step back at one point and go, oh, wow, we pulled this off. We fooled everybody into thinking this was great.
Well, we didn't get baby dogs, so maybe.
We
next
did
year.
not get baby dog. That was the failure. And I did, just so this group is aware, I did put in the request for baby dog. It clearly said baby dog.
I think that's the only thing I missed in the whole event.
But any other thoughts? And again, we want to, you know, this is the beginning of a conversation. You know, the bad news, good news of COVID was Tara and I in ways had 3 years to plan last month's, because we took a lot of the work that we had done for the 2020 that got shut down and were able to quickly get the framework up, but we didn't know what was gonna work. You know, it was very much, you know, with your all's feedback and support, we threw out some ideas and then, you know, saw what came together. And, you know, that's, I think we want to build on it, but, you know, we want it to be better and grow. We don't want it to be a static thing or something that becomes, oh, you know, we've got to.
We don't want it to be boring, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We have a comment from Sheila in the chat, and she says, time for networking is always valuable. And I think that goes to the South by Southwest conversation that we've been looking into. How do we structure it kind of like the South by Southwest model? So in the evenings, we would go and ask different organizations to sponsor. Maybe it's an hour of coffee or an hour, a happy hour. And you would go to different locations based on your interests. So, you know, we've got Jerry Wood on here. If we had a veterans evening, that would be, you could go to that, or maybe there's one for the arts, or maybe there's one for women's pitch. So we want to make sure that you can hop around. We'd like to have it in a downtown where you can go to, number one, you're supporting local businesses by going and visiting them, but you're also getting to go and network with our peers. So thank you, Sheila, for that comment.
And continuing on with the networking receptions, we thought that gave a nice start to the morning and allowed those who were coming in a little bit of cushion on maybe not having to get up quite so early to get to where we were. So anything else anybody has? We really appreciate the support again. We're gonna be moving forward in the near future with the planning for 2023. So just shoot myself or Tara an email and let us know, particularly if your community is interested in that pool. We really want to see, you know, Charleston did step up this year. I would be remiss in saying they actually did provide us with a lot of amenities and $5,000 sponsorship to help us defray the costs of doing the event here. So we do appreciate Mary McGoodwin and Jane Bostic from the city of Charleston for stepping up and doing that. Next on the list, there are some changes coming to the ecosystem. I guess it's as good as any time to let the ecosystem know that I've accepted a job with an out-of-state company and I'm no longer gonna be chairing the ecosystem anymore. It's been an exciting time and really just fantastic. And I'm gonna get to stay involved though, because the out-of-state company that hired me is the Bentham Foundation. So I'll be the senior program officer for community and economic development. So get to stay on and participate and stay around. I'm just not going to be chairing anymore. So I am super pleased to announce that not replacing me, but much bettering than me, Amber Ravenscroft has agreed to come on as the co-chair of the ecosystem, and will be fulfilling that role over the next couple of years. And I think it's good. This transition's occurring because of a job change, but I will go ahead and throw out there now that I think it's good to have a rotational system. Tara and I volunteered for this a couple of years ago, and 3 years ago, maybe, just because it was needed. And it's a lot of work, but it's also like super rewarding. But a good rotational system, this should never be Bill Woodrum's ecosystem or Tara's ecosystem or Carrie White's ecosystem. It should be our ecosystem and rotating through that. And everybody brings different examples and different strengths to the table. And we want to continue to do that. So thank you all for everything you've done. And I look forward to continuing to work with you all. A little bit different capacity, but still so many of the people that are on here that I've enjoyed working with over the years.
Thank you, Bill. We are going to miss you. Amber, do you have a speech prepared?
No, I put in the chat just incredibly big shoes to fill. And I know that Bill has just put his heart and soul into this ecosystem, and I will do everything I can to help support it as well. And thank you, Bill and Tara, for trusting me to fill those shoes. So appreciate it. Looking forward to working with you all.
Yes, thank you, Amber. Bill, any final thoughts?
No, I'll still be around. You guys know I'll still be around giving thoughts. So it's exciting times. So,
Bill, I was like, if you disappear now, I'm out of here. We can't go.
Pittsburgh's going to take up most of my time. That's where the new funds are all going to go. No, you guys know I'll be around, hoping to live up to the incredible legacy that Mary and Mary set, and find new and interesting ways to engage with you all in the system and take away of the emerging opportunities that are coming. As you know, Mary always used the term looking for that opportunity around the corner, and you know, there's a lot of them right now. I think as we saw with Amber's presentation on NSF earlier, I think it's a unique time. I think there's a lot of opportunity for West Virginia, and I'm excited to be hopefully part of that movement. So next up is Mary Hott, who wants to give us, I think, a quick reminder. Mary, are you still on with us? I see you, but I don't see you.
Oh yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, there you are.
I disappeared off your screen probably. So yeah, congratulations, Bill and Amber. I'm looking forward to working with you more closely, Amber. So I just wanted to remind everybody that even though the state offices are closed tomorrow, we had planned, Tech Connect West Virginia and the SBDC and Tech program had planned, has an ongoing intellectual property series. And the third in that series is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So May 10th, 10 o'clock. It's presented by the U.S. Patent and Trade Office. And the reason why I'm encouraging people to, even if you've had this one, number three tomorrow is on trademarks and copyrights in particular. Last week was patents. But to have a representative from the U.S. Patent and Trade Office presenting has been really great, because they're the ones reviewing some of these. And so some of the questions they answered were really valuable. So, their input as to, how to submit some of these things. I'm going to post in the chat the link to register. It's on Tech Connect's website, the registration link, but I'll post that in the chat for you to link to if you can. And if you're interested in particular in patents, you might want to we can check with Rich. I'm not sure how he set it up, but if you can still register for last week, or if you contact Rich or I, we could probably send you the slides from last week. And that way you'll have the contact information for like their program manager and different things. And the final one will be next Tuesday, the 17th at 10. And that's going to be an overview of all the different kinds of resources available for intellectual property of all kinds, including our resource center in the state, our only resource center in the state that is, through the Patent and Trade Office, which is Marion at WVU. So the WVU libraries. So anyway, and she's going to be partly presenting also.
And Marion had a power outage. I guess Evansdale has had power issues today.
Oh, really?
She was planning to be on and help you, but she, emailed very last minute and said, we've got a power outage. Monica Miller asked if there will be a recording available, Mary.
We recorded them, yes, and that's what I meant by if you want to go and if you cannot register for the ones that have already taken place, then let me know and I'll forward you. I know we've only received so far the slides from the first presentation. We're still waiting on the slides from last week's, which was patents.
Awesome.
And then if you register for tomorrow and you still can't attend, you'll be on that list to receive the recording when it comes by. So.
Awesome. Any other questions for Mary? Okay, thank you, Mary. We appreciate your partnership. The West Virginia Women's Business Center just sent a thing today. I'm going to send it out, but I wanted to mention it to the people who are on the Zoom as well. May 18th at 9 a.m. in Charleston, they're going to be doing the ribbon cutting on their Charleston offices. You can find the information on the calendar at wvbusinesslink.com, of course. All details there, including the link to registration, but you'll probably see that from me in the email as well. While I had you all on here, I wanted to go ahead and mention that for Nora. She just sent that to me this morning. Final topic that I have today, that doesn't mean that there's not more to be discussed, but Tara, the strategic planning meetings that are coming up later this week.
Yes, thank you. I'll just quickly say, I just put in the chat, it's the equity and entrepreneurship. It is going to be, we have 2 sessions this week. We have one at Marshall on Thursday and one in Morgantown at the Launch Lab on Friday. And that is the K through 12. We're trying to map out the entrepreneurship ecosystem in the K through 12 world. So please feel free to register, share the link. We have I think we have about 15 in each group set for this week, but we are always welcome to have more. I have it shared on the screen. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email.
Awesome. Thank you, Tara. Does anybody else have anything that needs to be brought to the attention of the group? I will be sharing, Business Link obviously goes on beyond after me. We'll, as a new coordinator and a primary point of contact is named here, we'll make sure that that gets up to the system as quickly as we can. And you can always use info@wvbusinesslink.com, and that will get into the staff here if you have, once I'm gone, May 27th is my last name. Just to make sure I know that. Marjorie, I saw you take yourself off mute.
I just wanted to, say congratulations to you, Bill, and to you, Amber. Really exciting news. But the Faster West Virginia, we have our next webinar. It is June the 14th. And it is, we haven't actually fully fleshed it out yet, but Advantage Valley has certification grants in the amount of $500 for minority-owned businesses and Black-owned businesses. And Truist has given us this money, and we have some a great amount of money still to offer. So that webinar will be focused, and they are statewide grants for that certification. So stay tuned. We'll have marketing material out about that. So just wanted to mention that.
No, that's huge. Thank you, Marjorie. We appreciate you bringing that up. Anything else? Anybody else from the system with anything? Any more news? Okay, we are right up on our time. So thank you everyone for another wonderful month. This will be my last one as chair. So thank you guys. We should have had that closing time song from the 90s. Those of you who are old enough to remember that. But thank you all again. I have truly enjoyed it and look forward to evolving our relationship and interacting in new and different ways. So with that, thank you so much, and we'll see you in June.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Bill.
Bill. Congratulations.